Hi, everybody. Hi. 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 Hello. Hi, Mom. My name is Kim Clark, and as Sasha said at the beginning of the service, I've been studying under Reverend Deborah Johnson for 16 years. 16 years. And I never thought I had no idea how much that studying would help me today. She is speaking at East Bay in Oakland, spreading the inner light joy up in the Bay Area. And she says, hello. And she says, happy Pride. This is Pride weekend. I'll get to that in a minute. There's more to come on that. But the last time I was here speaking with you, it was November of last year, 2019. A lot of life has happened since November of 2019. 500,000 people were alive around the world before COVID-19 hit, starting in December. In January is when the rest of the world started to feel COVID-19. February, Ahmaud Arbery. March, Breonna Taylor was alive. In April, that's when a lot of deaths really started to hit. March and April, especially in the United States. May, Tony McDade died. Nina Pop died. 2 trans Black individuals. George Floyd. June, Rayshard Brooks. Rhea Milton, Dominique Remy Fells, 2 more trans Black people of color. 13 trans people of color have been killed either by police or private citizens who we may or may not ever know who they are so far this year. And folks, June marks that we're only halfway through 2020 with COVID and the Black Lives Matter movement uprising once again to get our attention. June is also Pride Month. This is the 50th year of Pride. Pride was started a year after the Stonewall riots in New York City, which was started by trans people of color. Don't let the revisionist white document or movies tell you otherwise, but it was Marsha P. Johnson and others, Sylvia Rivera. Trans people of color were the ones who stood up at Stonewall and rioted against the constant police brutality and raids upon that and other clubs. There had been others in San Francisco and in LA, but there was something about that moment at Stonewall that specifically trans people of color said, no more. And they started a riot that lasted several days. A year later, to mark that occasion, is how Pride started. So last year was the 50th anniversary of Stonewall riots, and this is the 50th anniversary of Pride. And this is how we're spending it, virtually. There's a lot of virtual opportunities. Locally here in the Santa Cruz area, I was able to be in a march that was a Pride parade and Black Lives Matter merged. We came together, and in silence, we walked through downtown. The police gave us the streets in Santa Cruz, and we walked down. And as we walked downtown, in our silence, everyone who was like shopping or getting their, vegetable paella at the local Spanish restaurant, they all were silent too. Now, I'm all masked up. I've got a hat on, I've got sunglasses on, I've got masks on and stuff, and I'm crying the entire time. There's Black people who were on the sidewalk who brought out their signs saying Black Lives Matter. And as we walked with our rainbow leis and our Black Lives Matter signs, we walked in solidarity. Now, the histories here are interconnected. They are interdependent. Not only was Stonewall started by Black and other people of color trans, there's also Juneteenth that happened this month, a holiday that was primarily celebrated within the Black community and not on the radar of most white people. And yet you have like big tech organizations who are now doing company holidays for Juneteenth when they hadn't even heard of it a year ago. So what does that mean moving forward? So Juneteenth happened, then SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States, makes a decision that protects LGBTQ plus people at their employment, at their jobs. They cannot be fired just for being LGBTQ plus. How was that decision made? Based on the Civil Rights Act from the Civil Rights Movement. Somebody put the word sex in there. And that many years later, that word, that movement, that act is protecting LGBTQ plus people, where in 25 states, half of the United States, you could be fired for being LGBTQ plus, just for that. We are interdependent. Our histories are tied together. That's how we're going to be human beings together, is to remember that we are interdependent. So since it's also the 5th anniversary of when marriage equality was also passed by the Supreme Court of the United States 5 years ago, I've been reflecting back on when I was a part of the work around marriage equality. Here in California, there was this proposition called Prop 8. And it was successful in confusing people of yes on 8 was actually denying marriage equality versus no. And so it passed, but then we got to the Supreme Court and marriage equality was upheld. So that was 5 years ago. And for the last 15 years, I've been volunteering for the Triangle Speakers, which is part of the Diversity Center here in Santa Cruz. And you go out on panels and you would speak and tell your story. I am a lesbian. I am gay. And I participate in those panels because I want people to hear my story. I was raised in a conservative Christian environment. I had a horrible time coming out and considered suicide. People need to hear our stories. While Prop 8 was happening in California, I spent a lot of time at those panels talking about what marriage equality meant for somebody like me. And it became very apparent very quickly that I was considered a second-class citizen, that I was not seen as or recognized as having equal rights to marry somebody I loved because of gender. And the more and more I was out speaking about this and just telling my story of just like, I don't understand the difference. I don't see how I am, if I tell you I'm a professional, I'm in tech, I'm a mom, all of those things, then I have equal status. But if I tell you I'm gay, suddenly I have unequal status. And so when I was in that position, it really helped me understand the power of the ally. How powerful the ally is. Because we weren't going to get anything passed if it was just up to LGBTQ plus people because we were considered less than second-class citizens. It was straight folks that got us marriage equality. And so straight folks had to have their own journey to come to that place and recognize that equality. And when I saw, it was a lot about them knowing somebody and hearing stories that helped them move through whatever were the blockages for them before to the point of supporting marriage equality. That's when I went, okay, I see the power of the ally. And as over the last few years, there's been a lot of prominent social media showings of Black death. And with George Floyd, it is undeniable that it was murder. And we cannot look away. We cannot unsee. We cannot unhear. We cannot unfeel. We cannot check out. There is no normal. People are asking, let's get things back to normal. Oh no, it wasn't so great. Let's be honest, y'all. It wasn't so great. The normal wasn't so great. We were depressed. We were exhausted. We were fighting ourselves. We were fighting each other. We didn't even like ourselves. We were medicating. Whatever it is, that normal, as Rev D says, what needs to be healed will be revealed. 2020 has been nothing but. Why is the phrase 2020 vision so popular? Because we're visioning right here, right now, in 2020. That's what 2020 is about. Surfacing what needs to be healed. So, especially after George Floyd, the kind of work I do, funny enough, is diversity and inclusion and equity communications. I focus on language. I teach people to start with the most free, immediate, affordable thing you can do to show up as an ally, which is look at your language and change it where it needs to be changed. Because language does have power, as Barbara said. It can either unite us or it can divide us. And while there are plenty of forces that are asking us to be divided and to continue to make sure that there's a versus, a VS in there somewhere in our story, we don't have to accept that. Because our only responsibility is to be a place of possibility. So language also can either retain or break up the status quo just by our words. And our words takes consciousness, they take intention, they take awareness, and it's always a choice. Every single time we open our mouths, it's a choice of what we say and what our intention is. It shows us what our intention is. It shows us what our heart is and where we're at. So as I'm advising like executives and other communicators, I have seen, because of my experience through marriage equality, the power of allies. To where in the marriage equality situation, I was considered the second class underrepresented group. In this conversation, I have power. I have privilege just because of the color of my skin. And if you are up on the whole meme around Karens and Beckys and Chads, I am a white woman who can easily turn into a Karen or a Becky and reinforce that stereotypical mindset of entitlement. I choose to use my white privilege as an ally for good. And I want you to too. Can I just talk to white people for a second, y'all? You good with that? Can I just talk to white people for a second here? All right, just you and me, all right? Everybody has privilege. Don't feel guilty about it. Step into it. Leverage it from wherever you are. Let me put it in Rev D's language. Feel, deal, heal. All right? So let's go through those steps. First, we have to feel. We have to pay attention to George Floyd's situation. He was murdered. Do not say he was killed or there's any kind of accident. He was murdered. We have to feel that. We watched a man lose his life. It is on the internet. No one should have their last moments on the internet for all to see. We have to feel the context of how we got to where we are today. Here's some resources. Read How to Be an Anti-Racist. Read White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. Watch 13th on Netflix, and it's free right now on YouTube. 13th, about the 13th Amendment. Anything from Ava DuVernay you can watch. When They See Us is another one, about the Central Park Five. Watch it. The guy who ran VeggieTales, for those who grew up with VeggieTales or have a Christian background, you know about VeggieTales, watch this video by the founder of VeggieTales. He spends some time going through 100 years of history that's going to take you to your knees. And you know what he says at the end? He's like, I just have one ask for you. Care. Care. We cannot let up. We need to do our research. We need to understand the past in order to understand the current so we can reimagine the future. What is our 2020 vision? But you got to start with feeling it. You got to feel it. Feel it. I've had several emotional crashes as I'm leveling up, as I'm taking in. I already have Native American ancestry in my blood. And I've had to grapple with how on earth did one half of my family slaughter the other half of my family? Whatever it is for you, tap into it, so you got to feel it. You cannot skip this step. And unfortunately, as I'm talking, just you and me white people, a lot of people are going to deal right away and want to fix it. Here's our statement. This is what we're going to do. We're going to hire this many black people. We're going to do this. Is it meaningful? Are you coming from a place of healing? Rev has healing as the last step for a reason, because it needs to inform your feeling. It needs to inform your dealing. So there is a healing. If you skip feeling and go to dealing and try to fix it, or just wait for everybody just to calm down the way it's always been done, then there's no healing. So we got to deal with it. Talk to people who are the most impacted. Learn. White people need to shut up. Listen. Learn. Do your own homework and engage in conversation. This has to come to light. Have a conversation. We do not want people who are, some other different kind of mindset where they still believe all lives matter is the appropriate thing to say, which it's not. Look it up. There's 100 articles out there that'll explain that to you, why all lives matter is not the appropriate approach. It's because Black Lives Matter are the most vulnerable. They are the most urgent. Just like COVID. There's still cancer. There's still other disease, but the urgency is COVID, which, by the way, disproportionately is killing Black and brown populations because of systemic racism. You got to say the words, and you got to see that if you are white and have been born and raised in this country, you've been a part of it. You've had a role. I have a Black colleague, young female, who said, I'm going to ask you a question, but I don't want to know the answer. She said, white people, are you doing this intentionally? Is this intentional? Or are you really this oblivious Do you really not understand the impact that you have? Had I answered her, this would be my answer. It's true for some that it's intentional. But the vast amount of us are frickin' clueless. We have no idea the kind of impact that we have had. The complicit nature of our behavior, no idea. We don't have conversations about race like other races do. Race is a social construct. The U.S. has been built for the advantage of white people. Rev has this remarkable definition around white privilege, or just privilege in general. She uses the analogy of being able-bodied. We don't think about it. If you are able-bodied, I just walked up these stairs to come up and talk to you twice because I forgot my paper. Didn't think anything of it. Same with my whiteness. Now, I was very clear about my being gay, that I have a son with special needs, that I have Native American ancestry, and that I'm a woman. Very clear, because I see the comparison. I can feel the contrast there. But my whiteness, no. Hasn't been on my radar. No idea how much advantage that I've had. No idea. So this is where we deal. We deal with it. We admit it. We look at it. And there's going to be times where we're going to screw up. So just apologize now. Just lay it out. But you keep trying. You keep trying. There's a book by Vernae Myers called What Do I Do If I Say the Wrong Thing? Pick that one up. She's the VP of Inclusion Strategy at Netflix. I won't say Netflix is doing that great of a job on this, but Vernae Myers is. What do I do if I say the wrong thing? So don't let it stop you that you don't know what to do. Those are most of the conversations I have with like white CEOs and white executives. I was on the phone with somebody who's high up in the Canadian government, a white woman, on Friday morning, and she said, Kim, I don't know what to do, and I'm really struggling with my white privilege. And I said, your white privilege is meant to be a place where you can leverage your power for good for everybody, that you're looking out for everybody. It's no longer me or mine. Nope. Power dynamics, that is history, and I mean the double entendre there. Power dynamics is history. Collaboration and partnership is now. That's the 2020 vision. And she said, I'm really stuck in this. And I said, so you're stuck in the feel. You're stuck in the feel. And you don't know what to do. And you don't want to do something that's empty. Good for you. But just do something from where you are. What is right before you to do? I can talk to you about language. We can talk about language and be more inclusive in our language. Checking our biases, our unconscious biases. Read Dr. Jennifer Eberhardt's book, Bias. If you want to, this is my Christian background, come to Jesus moment, read that one. Once we can feel, then we know what we're dealing with, and we deal with our privilege solely for the intention of healing. Because if you skip over feel and go to deal, you're not going to get the healing. If you just try to go to healing like, we're all just brothers and sisters, can we all get along? You haven't done your work. Iyanla Van Zandt would be very disappointed in you. You can't skip a step. Feel it. And it's like the grief process. Okay? The 5 stages of grief. And we have to go through that. And we have to own our 5 stages of grief. And you're going to swing. You're going to swing all over the place. You're going to go all over the place. You're going to be in depression more than once. You're going to be in anger more than once. Righteous anger. It's okay. But you're feeling it, which is going to lead you in a direction of how you, where you are, can deal with it. Here's some examples. Some major brands. Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben's, Mrs. Butterworth's, looking at their brand saying, yeah, racist roots, we need to change that. Never should have happened in the first place, but at least they're doing it now. A 22-year-old college student wrote an email to the Merriam-Webster's dictionary and said, I need you to add a little bit more to the definition of racism, because your definition of racism is not complete. It needs to include systemic racism. After a back and forth, the dictionary has agreed to update the definition of racism. Right? A tattoo parlor is offering free, I don't know what you call it. I don't have any tattoos, but covering tattoos of, that you have that are like hate-inducing. Do what you can do from where you are. What can you do? GitHub is for software developers. They have in their programming language the word master and slave. They're getting rid of it. Do what is before you to do. Where are you? Where do you work? What community are you in? What kind of family do you have? What can you do? And allyship, real allyship, is done not in front of people of color. It's when they're not in the room. I had a colleague, I was doing an interview over Zoom with a young black man, and he was such a good storyteller. And she's a white woman, and she was complimenting him on how well he was telling his story. And she used the word articulate. After the interview was over, I reached out to her and said, heads up, the word articulate is inappropriate because it has been associated with, wow, I'm so surprised a black person can speak so eloquently and so articulately. People would say that about Obama, how articulate he is. So I let her know, just you need to forgive yourself and be really conscious that that's not, that's not an appropriate word from a white person to a black person. And she said, I want to apologize to him. I am just devastated that I said that. And she goes, and she started to go into her, like, I didn't mean that. And I'm like, when we apologize authentically and sincerely, we don't rationalize like, well, I didn't intend to insult you, or I didn't intend to offend you. That dilutes the apology. So you just say, my word choice in saying articulate was not ideal. And I am sorry for that. I apologize for that. And she wrote him, and he wrote back, and he said, thank you for your awareness. So while we had this conversation, and it did get to his attention, and he was able to respond, who knows what energy that kind of frees up. If we're just in integrity, that we're standing for something, and at least look at our language and look at our actions, which is driven by our beliefs. So we need to modify our beliefs. And just like I learned as the underrepresented group in marriage equality, that the power lies within the ally, the straight ally, the power lies within us as white people. We're the ones that have to change. We're the ones that have to change. We're the ones that have to do the work. And we're the ones with the power to make what the Declaration of Independence talks about. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all, I'm going to say people, are created equal. And in the end there, certain unalienable, I can never say that word, unalienable rights, such as the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They just forgot the word, with vitality. We are all vital. We are all vital. Our role matters. Just watch It's a Wonderful Life. If you need a reminder of a story of what it would be like if we weren't alive, what would it be like? We all have a role to play right now in this 2020 vision, in this next normal for the planet, for the economic system, for the healthcare system, for our government. Socially, we have broken the social contract with people of color, with Black people for 400 years. It is time for us to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because marginalized people have been uncomfortable for centuries. Let's take one for the team. And let's do it with vitality, not letting up. We all have a role. We can all do this. I trust us. Even though we have broken trust and social contracts for 400 years, I believe in us. So call somebody else out of love. Let's help us understand what our unconscious biases are. Because this is divine intent. We have all been created equal. That's the fact. We just got to catch up to that memo and what it practically looks like in life. So wherever you are, do the work that is before you to do, with the intention of healing yourself, for your community, your workplace, your spiritual center, your family. Good luck with the family part. And with that, let's go into prayer.